Welcome to Natural Habitat Adventures Daily Dose of Nature. Today's topic, elusive images, photographing snow leopards in the Himalayas. Presented by NatHab Expedition Leader Surya Ramachandran. I'm your host, Rob Metz. Thank you for joining us here today. Take it away, Surya.
Thank you, Rob. Thank you so much. Hello, everyone. This is a topic which has consumed my life for the last 9 years, at least now, 8 to 9 years. I don't want to be very exact on that, but I've just put together something of my journey over the last few years, spending time in the landscape of snow leopards and other wildlife in the Himalayas of India, and let's see what we have to show. That's me, and this is fundamentally what is the core concept of the things we do in Ladakh, because Ladakh is a place unlike the rest of the country of India. When we think of India, we think of crowded streets, lots of people, lots and lots of people, cows on the streets. So Ladakh is like very different. Ladakh is a place where the population density is less than 3 people per square kilometer. So it's essentially one big wildlife sanctuary where snow leopards and other wildlife are everywhere. So we actually work with the community in Ladakh, and over the years, the Snow Leopard Conservancy and many other organizations have successfully put together a very good ecotourism program there, which is what NATAB and all of us work with in Ladakh. But before I moved to Ladakh, I worked in central India and the rainforests of southern India. That's where I worked for a long time, and that is a place where I spent time, a lot of time, with leopards, tigers. As you can see, we were sharing paths on the way to my room, to the properties where I worked, on the way to the safari. We did walking safaris in central India. And talking about photography, photography was very different. There was always beautiful subjects. There's always fantastic landscapes, streams, rivers. You know how it is in the rainforest, right? You can step over beautiful things as you keep driving around. Sorry if anyone has an issue with spiders or snakes. That's not my intent. I'm just trying to show you how much diversity there can be there in the rainforest. And for a photographer, it's such a delight because you can just go around clicking things and creating beautiful images. And this is my time in central India in the beautiful meadows of Kanha. We do go to this beautiful park with a Grand India tour, which is covers the three stunning parks of India, and this is Kanha National Park, and that is one of the best places to see the Bengal tiger. And this is a very special morning, a photograph which I got in Kanha about 7 years ago, if I remember right. And yeah, so my photography for the first few years of my life as a wildlife photographer and a wildlife guide was very different until the point I moved to the red dot in the top of the map. That red dot on the top of the map is Ladakh. So Ladakh is up here, and that, as you can see, is on the other side of the Himalayas. So I was initially working in the green parts of India, and then I moved to the brown cold desert to the north of the Himalayas. And this is how it looks in a rendered 3D map. So that is how tall the Himalayas are as compared to the rest of the country. And essentially, I moved to work on the other side of the Himalayas. So it is a very different experience. And the transition was something like this. So I used to work in rainforests, streams, proper forests with a lot of biodiversity. And overnight, I moved to the landscape on the right, which is just rocks, lichen, occasional snow, and a lot of dry weather. And this is essentially what Ladakh looks like: beautiful pastel hued mountainsides, grand monasteries, small villages, but essentially it's vast landscapes of absolutely nothing. Or at least that's what Ladakh feels like. It feels like uh, it doesn't feel like India at all. It is essentially a different place. Political borders apart, it is a very different to anything that you can imagine about India or where I live or where I worked before. It was totally different. Even the language, the food, everything was different when I moved over there. But as a wildlife photographer and as someone who's a wild wilderness guide, when I first went there, I thought the place was lifeless because the winters were cold and dry and the summers were hot and dry. You're seeing very, very few things. You're seeing very few trees, very few shrubs. After a point, you wonder, what am I doing here? Why did I leave all that beautiful natural history and rainforest behind to come to this place? And then I realized slowly, by working with the locals, by walking with the locals, seeing the landscape through their eyes, and of course with a lot of patience and a lot of real like relearning, going back to the drawing board and starting from scratch to understand the new landscape, we started understanding how the wildlife in Ladakh works. And we realized it's not about like how we do jeep safaris or safaris in Africa, where you just drive and you see gazelle and wildebeest and lions. It is not like that in Ladakh. In Ladakh, you really need to look, 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 and then look again, and look harder and look closer to start seeing wildlife. Because in Ladakh, though you may not have trees, the wildlife is very, very well adapted to the life in the mountains and they camouflage really, really well. And you can see over here, I've marked it with an arrow up there. That's a snow leopard sitting in the open amongst rocks and snow in Ladakh. It is not hiding, but this is a photograph where I've actually shown the snow leopard. But imagine if you're just staring at a mountainside, it can be very, very hard to figure out. And that is where our excellent spotters come in. We have a very, very good team of trackers in Ladakh who you will meet when you come for the snow leopard trip, and they do a fantastic job of finding these cats for all of us on such a regular basis. And even after so many years there, I feel like they have a magic trick which they're not revealing, because some of the things that they find are just impossible for a normal human being, even someone like me who's accustomed to the landscape. So the wildlife, as you can see in Ladakh, is very, very well adapted to living in the open, living in harsh conditions, living at very high altitudes. Sometimes you can drive past them even if they're right there. As you can see with these burrel sheep are actually in the open by the roadside. But imagine if you're just driving a car past them and they stay still, it can be very, very hard to see them. So that is how wildlife in Ladakh has adapted over the years. So for me, as someone who moved there from rainforest, who's used to seeing so much, the initial weeks and months were just a lot about understanding the place, staring at rocks, staring at more rocks, and then staring at more rocks. And that's what I did for the longest time. And I saw absolutely nothing because I was by myself for the initial few weeks and I was trying to figure out the place, and I really didn't know how to go about it. That is how life started for me in Ladakh. Yes, people advised me, people told me, go here, take a walk here, go have a look there, but I never saw anything. I had the best binoculars, I had good cameras, but I saw nothing. And after that, I realized I'm going to just put some camera traps out. So I don't know how many of you are familiar with the concept of camera traps. So camera traps are basically remote cameras which trigger when something moves in front of them. So basically, if there's like an infrared sensor, like an invisible sensor or a line of invisible light which the camera emits, and anything that walks past, including me, as you can see in this picture, that's me in the middle and my friend Gyapo on the right. So we put the camera there, and anything that disturbs the beam is immediately clicked a picture of. And that is how we saw our first snow leopards. So we saw our first snow leopards on camera trap. So I knew that they are there in the same trails I'm walking. I knew that they are watching me, but I still couldn't find one. So it was very frustrating, but as well very, very exciting when you first see these images. As you can see, the snow leopard is marking her territory, and we had actually put it on a rock which the local guide told me is used by snow leopards often to mark their territory. So that is the kind of knowledge that they possess. So I put my camera trap there, and within a week I had six different snow leopards. And that is something very interesting. Snow leopards are not as territorial as tigers. Yes, they are, but they have a lot of overlapping territories because of the vastness of the mountains. So a lot of different snow leopards may come and use a particular territorial marker. There could be multiple females, there could be even sometimes multiple males. So it was very interesting to understand all of that from the camera traps without actually seeing the cats. So I was kind of putting the pieces of the puzzle together, but I still hadn't seen the hero. I still hadn't seen the main thing I was there to see. So a lot of days were spent like this. This is me and our friend from the village, Norbu, who is a fantastic tracker. So both of us used to just lie down because after a point your neck starts hurting just looking up and staring at the sky and the mountains and the mountain tops from the bottom. So sometimes we would just lie down and scan without straining our necks. So that's uh, basically what Norbu is doing there. And then after about, if I can remember right, about 1.5, 2 months, I found my first cats. Thanks to again to the team from the village. This is how it was. That's me to the right and two villagers. We were just sitting and scanning, and suddenly we saw snow leopards. And when I say snow leopards, I mean snow leopards with an extra S at the end, because my first evening I saw six different snow leopards in one evening. That is how it was. 1.5 months of nothing and six snow leopards in one evening. So that is how my journey in Ladakh started. This is my first ever photograph of a snow leopard. It is not much, as you can see. It's very, very far. I didn't have. It was very poor light, but I think it's still a very special image for me because that's a memory which I'll never forget for the rest of my life. It was just one of those beautiful, incredible evenings. So then, of course, over time, we started seeing more snow leopards. We started getting guests more regularly. We started tracking them more regularly, and I started understanding the landscape better. So slowly and slowly, we started getting closer to the cats, understanding the cats better. This is all I remember. All of this I'm talking about, like 2017, 2018, my initial days in Ladakh. And I realized that even if you have like a 600 lens or 800 lens or a 2x converter, you don't really appreciate the distances of and the scale of things in Ladakh. The scale of things in Ladakh is just vast. So you think you have a big lens, you're going to get a close-up shots. It's not necessary. Very often, what we do is we use two different things. We use something called a Nikon P1000. It is a magic camera for tours for snow leopards. Nikon P1000. And the other thing we use is in the place where you'll come and stay. We have these really good adapters where your phone can go on the telescopes, and that is a fantastic way to get close-up shots. But as a professional photographer, if I want to get close-up shots of snow leopards, it takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of understanding, and of course, as is always the case, it takes a lot of luck. So over time, we started getting closer viewings of the cats. We started understanding their movements and predicting where they will come. And this is actually the first snow leopard which actually obliged and was not too far from us. And we spent about 7 days with this cat, following the cat, doing whatever it was doing. And sometimes we got really close, and we got some very, very special images. And until then, all my images were like the first ones you saw, where it's like a dot in the mountainside. Even though they're as special, don't get me wrong, but sometimes as a photographer, you want to have that much more of an edge to get the frames that you want. And yes, so this young male cat slowly obliged and gave us really, very, really good views. And just look at that cat, so beautiful, such perfect fur. It was like a perfect, flawless cat. I mean, this cat was young. It obviously hadn't. He obviously hadn't been in any fights. He had no scars. He had the most perfect fur, and this was like beautiful winter time. And this image was my first really good image of a snow leopard, because I mean, there are other good images like clean shots, but this one I find special because this snow leopard was actually walking through a monastery. As you can see, it was the ruins of a monastery, but still it's a very, very interesting setting. A snow leopard at the edge of a village walking through a monastery, and this frame, I mean, I'm so glad I was there to see this. It was quite a sight. It was not a wild frame, but it's a frame where it shows how porous the borders are between the civilians and the wild animals in places like Ladakh. This is the same cat. This is the closest we got to him. So you can see how beautiful his tail is, and his short legs, the ears which are low set so that there's not much heat loss from the ears. There is the tail, of course, is for balance, and the beautiful thick fur. So this is my first close encounter with the snow leopard, which I was able to capture with my camera. And again, I'm reminding you, this was all in 2017 when we were just starting out, and everything was new, exciting, and it still is. Don't get me wrong, but in those days we will just have like goosebumps all the time every time this snow leopard makes a turn to the left or turns and looks at us or looks up at the sky or swishes its tail. Everything is like, wow, that is fantastic. So it is a snow leopard we're talking about. It's probably one of the rarest cats in the world. So seeing them like this was something very, very, very special, and this is my first close encounter with the snow leopard where I could get good professional quality images. And then slowly we started realizing that there are multiple families of cats around. There are mothers with cubs around. We saw their tracks. We realized that, and as you can see, I like photographing everything. I don't just obsess and wait for the image of the cat. And I think that that is one piece of advice I'll give all of you who sign up for these snow leopard trips. Come with an idea to capture the landscape and everything that you see, and you'll go back with a very, very good story, a photo story to tell, instead of just images of wildlife. So I use a GoPro sometimes for wide angle images, and I like to photograph tracks. I like to photograph the spotters doing their thing. So one of those images where this is the mother and cubs, the very fresh tracks they're going. And then later that day with the trackers, we found them on a ridge. As you can see, it's not a great image. It was far away, but again, it's the first time we saw young cubs in our area. And then we realized there are more cubs in the area. It is not just them. So we started tracking the other snow leopards in the area, the other females with cubs, and slowly we kind of put together like a story of how many snow leopards there are, why they are moving where they are, what are their territories. We started photographing them so that we could identify each of them. Obviously it's not easy because very often you see them at very far distances, but whenever we can, using the camera traps and our images, and of course our Nikon P1000, which I think is an indispensable tool for wildlife photography in Ladakh. We slowly started putting together like the pieces together for the various snow leopards and how they move, where they move, why they move, where they move, which ones have cubs, which ones are okay with each other, where are the males, are they, which is the place where their territories cross. So photography was very useful in that sense, and slowly we put together information that kind of completed this 50 to 60 square kilometer slice of mountains that we work in Ladakh. But always the exciting thing is, even when you all of you come to Ladakh to see snow leopards, what we really wait for are kills. Kills when snow leopards make a kill. Why is that exciting? Because fundamentally, the snow leopard is not walking around in a high mountain for you to catch up with it. So it's not easy for everyone to follow a snow leopard which is moving in the mountains. Very often they disappear when you're trying to follow them. But when there is a kill, the snow leopard remains in the same place till it eats, because every kill is very precious in the harsh winters of Ladakh. So the snow leopards actually stay on in the same place and have a pattern where they come from the mountains to eat the kill and go back, and they come and go back. So we are able to get very close and very, very good images. So kills are very, very important for, and of course it's a matter of luck that the kill happens during the time of your tour. But if it does, those are your best chances to see snow leopards up close. And this is a big male snow leopard which is feeding on a ibex. You can see the horns of the ibex on the left of the frame. But something really interesting happened when we were watching this. So when I'm photographing snow leopards, I don't do just close-ups. Very often I like to frame it with the mountains, with the landscape, show how well they hide, show how the colors blend in, show how the patterns of the landscapes kind of work with the coat of the snow leopard to create like a perfect painting, if I may say so. Excuse me, sorry. So during this, when we were photographing this, something really unexpected happened. This snow leopard, while eating the carcass, decided to suddenly leave the kill, which we've never heard of. The snow leopard heard something. The snow leopard actually heard something in the mountains in the air and looked around and walked away. And we had no idea why. But then we thought, oh God, we had much better photographic chances when if the snow leopard was on the kill. But what to do now? All that. So we decided with the guests to just go for a walk the next day in a different valley to watch birds and photograph birds. So there are some very pretty birds in Ladakh. But when we went to that valley, we found the same snow leopard with a female, and they were mating. If you ever go to the YouTube channel of mine, it's in my name. You will actually see the whole sequence. I don't want to play videos here because very often when I play videos on webinars, it doesn't play well. So if you go to the YouTube channel with my name, which you can see in the webinars poster, you can actually go there and see the full mating video. So this snow leopard had left the kill, which it had made with such difficulty because it heard the female's call, and he walked over 3 ridges overnight. While we were having dinner and making plans for our birding walk, he had walked across the mountains to reach the female, and they were mating. And luckily, the path we chose ended up towards them, and we saw them for like 2 days mating. So we were feeling bad that we missed the snow leopard male on a kill because he moved away. But when we came to the other valley, we actually saw them mating for 2 days. So the possibilities are endless. The most important thing is to stay curious and keep exploring in the mountains, and something keeps happening. Whether it be snow leopards, it'll be wolves, or it be ibex, whatever it is. And this story kind of like puts it all together. This is a very, very interesting incident. Probably my most exciting day in Ladakh. This is the Blue Indus River. This is actually the month of October, even before the snow leopard sightings and the peak season starts. And interestingly, this trip was just me and a bunch of NATAB guides who decided to go on a road trip in Ladakh just to explore some corner of Ladakh which we don't really visit very often. So it was like a no agenda road trip, just going through the mountains. And we were going through this beautiful gorge where the Indus River flows. There is a road on the side. We were not driving over rocks, in case some of you thought we were off-roading. There is a road on the side, so the road goes along the Indus River, and you have this steep gorge from the mountains. And as we were going, we had no idea that we were going to have one of the best snow leopard encounters we've ever had. We were just going with just to have a cup of tea, maybe go for a hike, see some birds, no agendas, no plans. But as we were going, we noticed there was some sheep, wild sheep, which came down to drink water in the icy river. They had come down from the mountains. So for some of the native guides who don't do snow leopard trips, it was a new animal. So we decided to stop and show it to them. And we were just watching them, taking pictures. And all of a sudden, I saw there was a snow leopard which is stalking the burrow. And remember, these are guys who had come on the Ladakh road trip without the idea of seeing snow leopards. None of us even thought that's going to be possible because we didn't have our spotters, we didn't have local support. It's just a bunch of us driving, and this is on the roadside. So this snow leopard, this female, came around the barrel which was drinking water. The sheep had no idea that she was there. So if you look at this photo, the snow leopards on the extreme right at the edge of the grass, and the sheep are in the grass to the left. So this is a phone image we got because it's a wide angle image, and we knew something exciting is going to happen. She was just stalking the burrow. After they drink water, she was hoping to catch them on their way up the mountain. So that's what she was waiting for. That is her. So if you see how she's sitting now, and if I go back to the previous frame, you might be able to see her in there to the far right, just before the below the crack in the mountains. So she was there just patiently waiting in this beautiful autumn grass, which is turning like a nice brownish orange. And this is not a setting that you usually see snow leopards in. You always see them in rocks or snow, but now you're seeing them in like this beautiful savanna kind of riverside grass. And suddenly she took off she just started running through the grass at like top speed. I mean, she was like a cheetah in the Serengeti or in like the plains of Africa. She was just going after the barrel, huge leaps. Each leap would be about like 5 to 6 meters or maybe even more, and she was like very close to them in like no time. But the barrel did eventually get away. But what is interesting is she was so tired after the hunt because she had generated so much heat. You can see how dilated her pupils are. She was like very hot and she needed to cool down. Uh, and so she just went to a rock and sat. And what was interesting was for us is that we were just on the other side of the river. That's all us not have guides. I don't know how many of you know all of them. That's Falgun, Faiza, Vineet, Samir, and our driver on the trip, Angchuk, and I was the one who took the photo. So we were just on one side of the river, and on the other side, on the rock, was a snow leopard, barely 15 meters away. And we were just there, all of us, just watching. And some of the people who had come, this was their first snow leopard and they never even imagined seeing something like this. So the possibilities are endless. And what happened after that was even more incredible. The snow leopard, she just sat there, relaxed, cooled down, yawned. We saw how young she was. The canines were perfect. And then she decided to come down to the river for a drink, barely like 10 meters from us. She started walking through the grass. You can see how beautiful she is. Her coat was perfect. She knew she had no chance of making a kill, so she didn't try to hide herself. She just kept walking. And at this point, I'd like to say, if anyone had ever told you snow leopards are shy animals, it is not necessarily true. It is just that they are very hard to see innately. Like by their behavior, they're just hard to see. They're not like they don't run away like leopards do or other wildlife does. They don't run away at the sight of people. It is just that they walk in the mountains, which is a habitat which is very hard for us to get to or understand, which is why it feels like they're so hard to see. But it is not. We don't have to say they're shy. Whenever we've seen snow leopards, they've been comfortable with us being around and doing our own thing, and they go about doing their own business. We've never had an instance where a snow leopard has decided to move away from us. I have to say that. I just like to say that now because this one especially was just like walking about. We got some frames which we thought we'll never get, like in tall grass, in the riverside stones. And she actually crossed a frozen stretch of the river. And this is one of my most favorite images of snow leopards. Blue Indus waters, a steep gorge, and a beautiful mountain cat crossing a frozen stretch of the river. This was quite a sight. It was so special. All of us just watched. Some of us shot videos, some of us shot phone videos, some of us shot images. I'm just glad I had my camera handy. Initially, I was thinking I won't take my camera because we're just going to be doing a lot of hiking and birding. But I'm so glad I took my camera because frames like this were made possible. How incredible was that? This is the snow leopard, even closer than we imagined, with almost like we were just like lying down on the riverbank, and the snow leopard was in the middle of the river on a rocky island, and we were just like watching her go about her business. She was trying to cross the road. She came to the edge of the road. You can see how beautifully she hides. I mean, she's there in the open, barely a few feet from us. But if you look away and look back there, it takes you a few seconds to get back to where the cat is sitting. So she was beautiful. And this is the closest I've ever been with my camera to a snow leopard. I have been close to snow leopards without my camera, like accidental, where we just turn a corner and we cross paths. But with my camera, I could actually see every whisker in this female's face, and it is something I'll never ever forget. So, yes, so this is not a trip where we had any idea of photographing snow leopards, but it turned out to be one of our best encounters with this beautiful wildcat. And talking about my images from the journey I had been talking about from the 1.5 months in when I saw the speck in the mountainside, to understanding the cats, to finding snow leopard families, to understanding territories, and then randomly, without any effort, coming across your best snow leopard viewing. So that is kind of how Ladakh is. It kind of, how do I put it? It kind of always has something to offer, but you just have to be prepared for it. And when we talk about photography in Ladakh, I want to say that I have been, yes, speaking about snow leopards for a long time, but almost only of all my images in Ladakh, only 20% of the images will be snow leopard images. Because very often on trips, you spend time looking at everything. You look at landscapes, you look at river systems, you look at monasteries, you look at people, beautiful cultures, you look at night skies, you look at wolves, you look at ibex, golden eagles, you look at wild sheep. So there's so much to see when you come on these trips. So, and I'd like to make it clear that it is not necessary that all of them are wildlife. It is not necessary that all of them require like these big, massive lenses. Just come with whatever camera equipment you have and make the most of it. Try and create frames that you remember and take back as a story from Ladakh. So that's what I keep trying. I stopped shooting. I sold all my long lenses. I sold my like big bazooka lenses, which I don't think I need anymore. I just have a small lens, and I try to create frames where the subject is just a part of the habitat. So that's something I've started doing more and more. Like this image of these four wolves going up a mountainside. I shot it in black and white, and because the light was perfect, there was shadow on the well, there was light on the wolves, and I kind of loved it. So there is so much to see in Ladakh. Of course, unfortunately, this image is from Ladakh, but when you go for to see snow leopards in Ladakh, I have to say that the brown bears will be sleeping, the Himalayan brown bears, so you don't have a chance of seeing them on that trip. They'll be hibernating. So, but yes, I'm just saying that when I'm during my travels to Ladakh, I've tried to experiment with photography. The place is incredible because imagine you are going to a landscape where there is nothing that the animals can hide behind, and if you really plan it out well, you can actually end up with some great frames. So this is probably my best ever photograph I've ever taken. We had planned to go to a very flat part of Ladakh, which is a high plateau, which is almost at 4,800 meters. And that is a place where the Tibetan gazelle live. And we had timed it during the time of the full moon because the full moon rises at sunset. Unlike the other moons, which could rise at any random time, the full moon actually comes up from the horizon at sunset. So we went there, we knew which way the moon's going to come, and we placed ourselves in a place where there were some animals. This is in this case there was some Tibetan gazelle, and when the moon came up, we got this shot. So when you look at it like that, there is so much that one can do in Ladakh. Then silhouettes, because you have just rocks and the sky beyond, you can make some beautiful silhouette images. And the key to making good images at long distances in Ladakh, especially for those of you who are photographers, is that I generally tend to shoot at aperture value 10, 12, 14, because light is not an issue. It's You are on tripods, light is not an issue. But when you go for aperture value 10, 12, 14 instead of 2.8, you have a wider focal area instead of a very shallow one, so you get much sharper images. And you're not really looking for a blur in this case because the background is usually the sky or a wall of rock right behind the animal. So this is something I would suggest for those of you who are keen photographers. And of course, there is action. So we generally keep an eye out for action, like this ibex, which is on a near vertical cliff, feeding on the rhubarb leaves and the lichens, or a golden eagle soaring over one's head. This golden eagle is so close that I could never get the whole bird in, but I kind of like that because that is the only way that you can tell in the image that the bird is so close. If the bird was completely there in my frame, I wouldn't have ever been able to tell people, or without actually telling them by seeing the photograph, that the golden eagle was so close. But I think even missing out on a part of the bird in the frame tells a story without actually me having to explain that the bird was so close. So things like that, action photography. I look for funny moments, like this fox which came to spray on our safari on our vehicle. We had gone on a walk, and the fox came to mark its territory and pee on the tires. These are our fleet of vehicles in the winter on one of our trips. And of course, it's just rocks, the Himalayas, frozen rivers, ice, snow. So you can't go wrong with landscape photography. If you have a small point and shoot camera, even if you have an iPhone, you can create wonders in Ladakh, especially if you have a photo guide. If you join one of the photo trips, they'll be able to mentor you on how to use every device that you have to the best of your abilities. And of course, for those of you who are not that keen on photography, if you just want to use your phone, which is also fine because you can get some fantastic landscape images with your phones. And very often the people's phones get better wildlife images because the phone can go on the telescope, whereas the ones with the cameras have to use the zoom on their camera to click pictures. But remember, we do have adapters in the lodge to put your phone on the telescopes to photograph wildlife. And remember the Nikon P1000. It's a very, very useful camera when you come to Ladakh. Of course, monasteries, I try to shoot them at every different light condition possible because they're very interesting. They're such majestic looking buildings, especially because they're right on tops of hillocks. So you get some beautiful frames of monasteries. And in all these tours that you will be doing, you have a chance of photographing monasteries. We actually take time to do landscape photography, especially around the town of Leh. When the people are acclimatizing, we take them out for simple photography assignments like this. And of course, night photography, astrophotography. Imagine you're at 4,000 meters high in the Himalayas. It is the most clear sky you can imagine, especially if you go to a dark corner, and you can make some beautiful images. Even with your iPhone, you can make great images. You can make fantastic images with your cameras on tripods. And of course, all our guides will help you get such images. It may look hard, it may look daunting, but it's just about understanding your camera, and it's a very, very easy thing to do. One of the interesting times for me in Ladakh is in the month of end March, April. It's not necessarily something that everyone will see, but anyone who signed up for April trips or end March trips, very often April trips, we start seeing the apricot blossom. So the apricot trees, orchards in Ladakh start flowering. It's all of you might have heard of the cherry blossoms of Japan. It feels like something like that in a smaller scale. Maybe I've not been to Japan, so I can't speak confidently on that. But you can make some beautiful images, like this tortoiseshell butterfly on the blossom flowers. And this is one of my favorite. I shot this with a GoPro and even my phone. It is just the blossoms over around an old monastery, and the image can be surreal. So the landscape turns pink in a lot of valleys, and that offers fantastic opportunities for photography. And like I said, wildlife is not restricted to only snow leopards. You have a whole bunch of other wildlife to shoot, especially early in the morning. I always encourage everyone to get up early in the morning and go for a walk or go for a late evening walk, even if there are no sightings happening. Just go for a walk because the light is so soft, it is so beautiful, and it's nice and warm. So these you get these beautiful textures that pop out in such soft light, like this partridge. These partridges are all over the village, but very often you don't get good images of them because when the light becomes harsh, you don't get to see the black mask properly, the white throat, the belly. So it's all becomes like a very stark light coloration. So when you get them in this soft light, like especially mornings and evenings, you can create some beautiful images in that sense. And of course, the people of Ladakh, imagine surviving at 4,000 meters doing what they do. They are people like us, but their lifestyle is so much harder than us. They live in a very remote areas. Like this monk over here was cleaning the water canals to ensure water keeps flowing through the winters without any rocks blocking the water. So they have these physical labor work that they do on a regular basis to ensure that the water canals are debris free, so that it comes straight to their houses with gravity. So shooting daily lifestyles of people uh, can be really, really interesting in Ladakh, and you'll always have something happening, and you can always go for a walk and get some beautiful images of people and just doing what they do. It might seem normal to them, but for us, it could be like something like we could never imagine any of us doing in our daily lives. And of course, if there is a festival in Ladakh at that time, please check with NATAB before you sign for a tour. Sometimes, if there is a festival, because festivals in Ladakh change their time every year because it's based on the Buddhist calendar. So, if you actually can get to a festival, you can photograph the mass dances, people dressed up in like their absolute best, and everyone's open to photograph. So some of the best portrait images we get during the monastic festivals. There are many festivals that happen in Ladakh, some over the winter also. So in case there is one during your tour of Ladakh, I would suggest that you check with your NATAB representative so that you can carry the appropriate portraiture lenses if that is something that you are into. These are some of the best moments for me up until now with snow leopards in this landscape of Ladakh in my last 9 years. But I know that I still haven't got my best image. I know I still can do better with my landscapes, and I'm going to keep trying. And hopefully, I'll get to see all of you there soon, and we can learn together about this beautiful mountain kingdom of the snow leopard. Thank you so much for joining today.
All right, thank you so much, Surya. Now, before we start in with the question and answer session, I would like to remind everyone that you can submit your questions via the question field in your control panel. All right, so let's get to some of these questions. Um, so in that photo you showed a tiger with 4 cubs. So do we know what the average number of cubs per litter is? Because that does seem like a lot.
Well, we do. We have seen tigers with 5 cubs also, and I honestly believe that the tiger. I think it's not. I shouldn't say I believe. I think based on data, we can see the tigers in prey-rich areas, in areas where there's very easy prey, lot of prey. They generally give birth to larger litters, and in areas where tigers have fewer animals to hunt, they give birth to lesser, maybe 1 cub sometimes or two. But having said that, there is also a very strong possibility, and this has also been backed up by science. But I cannot generalize it because it could be a very case specific thing. The tigers generally give birth to 3 to 4 cubs, but by the first week, I think only 1 or 2 survive because of the ability of the mother to produce milk based on the prey she is hunting. So there is a possibility that they generally have on an average 2 to 3 cubs, sometimes 4 and 5, like I said. But how many get past the first week or month? That's usually when we start seeing them. That's what I'm trying to say. When we start seeing them, it's usually about a month or two later. By that time, how many survive is the big question.
Great, thank you for that.
Excuse me.
So, do we know how many snow leopards there are living right now? And do they live anywhere else other than in the Himalayas?
Well, so snow leopards. Well, it's a very interesting number. The global estimate of snow leopards is 3,000 to 8,000. You see where I'm coming from. So there is actually no study that has an actual accurate number, but we can tell you confidently that in the place you are visiting in Ladakh, we have about 15 to 16 cats around those areas, which you can see hopefully. But in India, the estimate comes to 200 to 600, and all over the world it is um, 3,000 to 8,000. So that is because snow leopards are found across 12 countries in Central Asia, not just the Himalayas. When they say the Himalayas, Himalayas is just that one strip. That's a great Himalayan range with Mount Everest and Nanda Devi and Changlang and Makalu, Lhotse. That's the great Himalayan range. But the Himalayas, as such, the entire complex goes up till Central Asia. So it has the Hindu Kush Mountains, the Pamir Knot. It has the Karakoram Mountains with K2, Godwin Austen, of course. All of those different ranges form the Himalayas. So snow leopards are found all the way till Mongolia, the Tian Shan area to the north, all the way till parts of China, and northern Burma is the big question mark. So northern Burma could be the 13th country if they are found there. There have been extensive surveys. The habitat is perfect, but they've not seen snow leopards there yet, as far as I know. But all the stands, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Afghanistan, Pakistan, Nepal, Bhutan. So we have about 12 Central Asian countries where snow leopards are found. But the actual numbers, as you can imagine, it's very hard to study the cat in this kind of mountain conditions. It's very hard to radio collar them and track them because very often these are border areas, conflict areas, so you can't put like satellite collars on them. So studying them is very hard. So we have a guesstimate, as I like to call it. It is just between 200 and 600 cats in India, but we do not, unfortunately, have any accurate number.
So, are there any unique behaviors that the snow leopards display that make them, that make them stand out a little bit more from the other big cats?
Well, they are a cat, so I think from if you observe closely, the house cat that you have at home behaves the same way as a tiger or any other cat. So they all behave the same way, except that they're adapted to their habitat. I did tell you about their body and how it's modified to take in the to live in these cold mountain conditions. Low center of gravity, short legs, long tail for balance, long tail also for heat dissipation to ensure the body doesn't overheat, large nostrils to take in air, small ears to ensure heat dissipation is less, thick fur. We did speak about that. But the one very interesting thing about snow leopards, which separates them from all other big cats, as far as I know, uh, possibly also because of the fact that they live in such harsh conditions. So if you've gone to Africa, I think most of you would have, or if you've seen a tiger, they mate through the year. Whenever the female has no cubs and she's ready to mate, uh, they mate. The big cats mate throughout. So very often in Africa, you see these lions mating whenever, in the rains, in the summer, in the winter. Same with tigers, same with cheetahs, same with pumas, same with jaguars. They mate whenever they come across a female in heat. But with snow leopards, because of the harsh weather conditions, we've noticed that the mating period for snow leopards is restricted to February and March. This is because if they mate in Feb and March, with a 3 month gestation period for the females, what happens is the cubs are born just at the onset of summer, so the weather conditions are fine. So the cubs are born in the month of May or early June, and that is also the time when the ibex, the wild sheep, and the burrell and the marmots, all of them give birth, and so there's plenty more prey for the female to easily hunt and feed the cubs. So what happens is this timing is absolutely necessary. So the snow leopards mate earlier. What happens is the cubs are born too early, it's too cold, there's not much prey, the cubs can die. If And the other way also is true. So the snow leopards, let's say they mate in April or May, what happens is the cubs are born in like August, September. So they just like less than 1.5 months old when the cold weather sets in again. And because of that, they're not big enough or ready enough to follow the mother to find prey in the winters. So that can also be dangerous. So it's important that the snow leopards mate in Feb and March. In fact, that is the only time we've heard them vocalize loudly. So they call loudly through the mountains and they walk big distances to find their mate. Because if they lose this window, their cubs have very few chances of survival. So Feb March for mating, May is when the cubs are born, and by the time October November the winter sets in, the cubs are big enough and they have enough fur to follow the mother and survive the harsh conditions. So this is critical, and this is something I've not seen in any other big cat.
Oh, that's very interesting. Thank you. So, do we know where they to give birth? Do they give birth in caves or do they create nests?
Yes. Yeah, well, definitely not nests. In fact, we have very few nest building mammals. I don't know how many of you know that the nest building mammals we know are, of course, the great apes, but they don't build nests to give birth. They build nests to sleep. Red pandas build nests to sleep. Fishing cats build nests using reeds, and I think platypuses build nests, as far as I know. But anyways, coming back to snow leopards give birth in caves on steep mountain sides. Yes, we found one cave with an active mother with her tiny cubs. We obviously never went close, but we could see her coming in and out of that place. She was there for about 2 months uh, after mating with the male. Yeah.
Great. Well, thank you for those answers. So, is a spotting scope something that we should bring with us on this trip?
Absolutely not. We have about six scopes with us at the lodge. You do not need to carry a spotting scope. We also have adapters, but you can get the details of what spotting scopes we have from your NATAB representative. And if you wish to carry your own adapter, so the advantage of that is you don't have to wait for others to give you their adapter after their turn is done. You can have your own adapter which can plug into your own scope. So you have adapters available on online in B&H and any store. So if you can just Google your phone and you can get a universal adapter and put that onto the scope. But for that, just ask NATAB for what kind of scopes are there at the lodge during your tour, so that that information can be passed on to you, and it's just easier, and it's just like you don't have to be waiting around for others to give you their after their turn is done. So that's pretty much it.
Great, thank you. So, is it easy to, or can you see the snow leopards with the naked eye, or do you really need a long lens or a scope?
Well, you can see them with the naked eye, yes. But again, it remember, I'm talking about stories from across my 9 years or 10 years in Ladakh now. The NATAB tours are at the max 1 week in snow leopard country. So it all comes down to what happens there. Yes, very often we see them in the naked eye. Very often we see them only through scopes or binoculars. Very often we need the scopes to see them, like I said. But yes, naked eye, again, it comes down to everyone's vision. Some people, in fact, some I've had groups where half the group could see it in the naked eye and the other half couldn't see it in the naked eye. They could still only see it through the scope. Because again, it's not just about seeing the cat, it's also about trying to discern the cat in that landscape, because it's very hard, especially with sitting down. It cannot be easy. So, yeah, you have a chance, I would say, but doesn't mean that it'll happen every single time. But till now, one really cool thing about our snow leopard trips, Rob, is that I think all our trips have seen snow leopards. That is, I think, I don't think anyone else can say that confidently. And we've been lucky, I have to say. It is not necessarily that we do something extra special. Yes, we do. So we do work hard, but a lot of companies across the world work hard. But we've had 100% record till now, so I'm very, very proud of that for that.
Well, that's great to know. Thank you. So,
Mhm.
what time of year is best to come on the snow leopard trip? Do we run these all year?
We run them in the winter. So if you look at our tour schedule, it starts in December and goes on till end April, and those that is the best time. So anytime during this time when you come, it is a good time. I don't have a specific good time for snow leopards. I've seen them throughout. Like I told you, I've seen them in June. I've seen them in October. I've seen them in August. But December to April, from whatever we've been doing over the last few years, we've seen that it works, and all our trips have gone well. So yeah, so the schedule is there, and it's between months of December and April. Yes.
And how many people come on these trips per
Well, I
trip?
think the maximum number is 10, but on photo trips, it's I think 8. Yes. Because these are small groups, all our NATAB trips are small group journeys. Um, so 8 to 10 is the maximum. 8 to 10.
And so, how hard is the walking? Is altitude an issue for us? And what kind of footwear do you think would be required for this kind of terrain?
Okay, so firstly, very often on trips we have people who have had difficulty walking. Even I have difficulty walking because it's 4,000 meters, it's rarefied atmosphere, it's very high altitude, it takes a lot of effort to walk. Uh, Having said that, we do acclimatize in the city of Leh. So we do make sure you're well rested and well acclimatized and well adapted to the conditions as best as we can in that short time before you go out. And we do very everything very slowly. It's not like a wake up in the morning and climb the mountain kind of trip. We do things very slowly. We do things very carefully because health comes first. So yes, till now the walking is difficult, but we do it slowly, and we have enough support, spotters, porters, myself, and other such guides, and everyone gets through. But having said that, we've also done trips where you don't have to walk, because one thing we don't realize is we have a very, very good road network in Ladakh. So very often we are able to drive around and do like very short walks, 20 meters, 100 meters, just to get to see the snow leopard, which is like at a distance from the road. So it is not necessary that you need to be absolutely fit, but if you are fit, it helps, because The more you walk, the more you understand the landscape, the more you can explore, the more you can keep up with the trackers and the spotters. But having said that, even if you don't, we can still manage because we have a fleet of vehicles, and we have we've done that in the past, so it doesn't affect. And coming to the topic of shoes, I would say any thick-soled waterproof shoes which can go up till -20 really helps. Thick-soled waterproof. Columbia has some good ones. North Face has some good ones. A lot of companies do good shoes. Thick soles to make sure your feet are warm. -20 rating and waterproof to ensure that even if it's snowing, your insides of your shoe stay dry. That helps.
Great. Thank you for that. Well, unfortunately, Surya, that's going to be the last question that we do have time for today. So I'd like to throw it back to you for any closing comments you may have for us.
Well, Rob, I like to point out that going back to the first question that people were asking me how many snow leopards there are. So I told you numbers 3,000 to 8,000, 200, 600. So it is still a cat that needs to be better studied. And I like to remind all of you that the snow leopard has been taken off the endangered species list about 3 years ago without any data to say why. As much as it sounds like good news, it is important to know that when a species is taken out of the endangered list, the funding for its research and conservation goes down. So, as much as it looks like we are on the positive track when it comes to snow leopards, it is important to know that the removal from the endangered category has been done with very, very poor data. And I think there is a lot of work that needs to be done on snow leopards. There are a lot of good organizations doing very good groundwork. So if those of you are interested, please write to NatHab, read up on our sister organizations, read up on the conservationists, read up on the people on ground doing the hard work. I've done some webinars on snow leopard conservation in the past. It is there on the NatHab's YouTube channel, so please watch it because it's important to have an entire picture of the landscape and why the cat survives and what have the people done in the past to make the cat thrive in that place. So that completes the picture. So it'll be important for people to know that before they come on the tour.
Surya, thank you so much for taking the time to present for us today.
Thank you, Rob.
And I'd also like to thank everyone who joined us today. So, if you are interested in information on how you can travel to see the snow leopards with NatHab, please give us a call at the number on your screen, or you can send us an email at info@nathab.com. Our adventure specialists are happy to help you out. And if you're part of a photo club and would like NatHab to speak to your members about nature and travel photography, email us at webinars@nathab.com. Join us tomorrow for our next daily dose of nature. You can check out this week's lineup, including registration links, on our website at nathab.com/webinars. We did record today's presentation, and we will have the replay available on our website soon. With that, I will conclude the webinar. Goodbye, everybody. We'll see you next time.